your main aim is to figure out and to keep their focus on how product decisions relate to business outcomes. Hello, smart people. How are you today? In this episode, we are going to do a Q&A episode. So I asked you a few weeks ago to send me your questions so I could answer them here. And so today we've got questions from 3 listeners. And if you want to have your questions answered, then obviously send them to info@techfornontechies.co. And that email address is below in the show notes. So again, that's techfornontechies. Oh, rather, info@techfornontechies.co. So today we've got questions from somebody who is working in digital transformation at a corporate. We've got a question from a non-technical founder, and we've got somebody who works in a strategy at a retailer. Okay, so by the way, if none of those things apply to you, if you are not exactly one of those people, you are still going to hear useful things about how to succeed in the digital age. So I suggest that you keep on listening, you keep on watching. And if you are enjoying this lesson, if you're enjoying this Q&A, then please leave this show a rating and a review, or just press like if you are on YouTube. Okay, so let's get to our first question. So we've got this email. I'm going to keep all of the names anonymous. So we've got somebody who's a strategy director at a retail company, and they say that, okay, I'm in meetings with product managers and with engineers, and I don't know what I should be contributing in these discussions. So what should I be asking in product meetings if I don't have this technical background? And this is somebody who says they're a strategy director at a retailer. Well, so first of all, you are clearly there to bring some sort of value, and that value is clearly not going to be technical, so don't worry about it. So obviously, if you're a strategy director, you understand the company's business goals. So why the company is doing what it's doing, what the big vision is. So my advice in general for you is to focus, basically keep on bringing the focus to why are we doing this in the first place. So if you think about it this way, engineers focus on the how, and on the business side, you focus really on the why. So for example, the product managers and the engineers might be discussing a particular feature. And so you could ask, how does this feature support our business objective? So you could even say, our business objective is to, I don't know, open 3 more stores in the US by the end of the next quarter. I just made that up. I don't know. But how would creating this feature support our expansion goals? You could also ask another kind of more general question. When they're talking about a new release or releasing a new version, you could say, so what does success look like for this release? So essentially, what are we looking for? And that brings people back to measuring. You shouldn't have a team that's only creating features just because it's fun to create them. You always want to measure results. So what does success look like? And how does this success relate to our business strategy? Another question that you should be asking is, what are the biggest risks in releasing this? What are the biggest risks that we have in our product today? And if people start explaining to you in ways that you just completely don't understand, then tell them and say, sorry, I don't understand. Can you just explain that to me again? Can you try it in plain English? And, don't be too apologetic about this, because obviously if you're a strategy director at a major corporate, you have done quite well for yourself. So you know some stuff. It's just if you don't know technical jargon, that's because you basically weren't born with it. So don't be afraid to ask for explanation. But in general, your main aim is to figure out and to keep their focus on how product decisions relate to business outcomes. So you literally just say, so how does this decision in the product relate to our business objectives? If you just keep on asking those questions, you'll actually be bringing in a lot of value. And in my experience, engineers and product teams can sometimes actually forget what the business's vision is. So even just by saying what the business's vision is and what the goals are, you're bringing in a lot of value. And also, it's kind of your home turf. Like if you're the strategy director, you know what the vision is. So you're bringing in your expertise. And this is exactly why you're there. Okay, let's get to the second question. One second. So I've got somebody who works in operations in finance. So this person says, I'm leading a digital transformation initiative, but my team keeps saying to me that our releases are going to take longer than we originally thought. Do I push back? How do I keep on working without damaging trust? Okay, this is obviously me taking the questions and annotating them. Okay, so first of all, this happens all of the time. So if like don't think that you are an idiot doing something wrong. This happens all of the time. So this happens, in every situation, in every company that's going through digital transformation. Don't, yes, 70% of the digital transformations fail, but it doesn't sound like you're necessarily on that path yet. So don't be afraid. So the first thing is you need to start asking for transparency, basically. So you could say, okay, well, so you gave me an estimate last week, for, I don't know, it will take another month for this, but now this week the estimate has changed. Why is that? Why has the estimate changed? Okay. And again, if they explain things to you in a way that you don't understand, ask for clarifications. What you often, what on the business side, we often don't know is that actually we are making it harder for ourselves by basically asking for super complicated things that take ages to create. So what I like to do when this kind of thing happens is to say, okay, well, are there things that we can take out? Like what features can we delay? What can we take out? If we needed to release something in a month's time, out of all of this, what could we realistically do? And then that way you're getting into this collaborative decision making where, like the worst thing is when the business leaders are saying, we want this, and the engineers are saying, that's impossible. And then that's where the discussion ends. And like that's really not productive. Whereas if you get into this conversation of, okay, well, what can you do? What's realistic? And then you start saying to the engineers, well, okay, so these features are really important because our key customers said that they need this in the next month. But these features are not super important. They're kind of nice to have, and we can wait until a bit later. And then that way you get into collaborative decision making. And then also you can start understanding why some things take longer. You basically can also do just time boxing, and you can say, okay, if we needed to ship in 2 weeks, what could we ship in 2 weeks that adds value? And then just say, okay, in 2 weeks, this is what we have agreed together. Make sure it's together. And then if you agree together, then it's actually much more likely to happen. So don't challenge the timelines necessarily, but challenge the priorities behind them. So maybe there are priorities that engineers have been working on that actually you think are not necessarily priorities. And this is where collaboration is really, really important. So, in the last episode, I talked about doing an anonymous survey to understand the tech and non-tech tension. So it sounds like you might have some of that. I'm not sure because I don't know about the situation exactly, but it sounds like you might have this kind of tech and non-tech tension at your company. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, go and listen to that and then get that get that anonymous survey to survey your tech team and your business team to basically understand what's really going on. And that's at techfornontechies.co/survey and also in the show notes. And there is an episode that I did recently on how to work with developers that I think you might find super useful. Okay, now we've got a question from a non-technical founder. Okay, so she says, I'm not sure whether I should find a technical co-founder or hire an agency. And you talk about building things with no-code tools and AI. So how do I decide? Okay, it's quite a broad question. So basically, it just depends where you are in your journey. So if you are super early stage, like if you're at the point where you have an idea, you think it's going to work, you have only spoken to some people basically just to find out what the problem is, you are still in the very, very early stages, and this is not the time to be spending money on expensive people. So, if you are still in this validation time, I would suggest that you use no code and specifically AI tools to create a prototype and test it. There are lots of episodes that I've done earlier on how to use AI and no code tools, but my favorite to create a prototype are Galileo and Wizard, and Wizard is spelled Uizard, but there are lots of others. So basically, create a prototype using AI tools, test it. So basically, take it to your target users, get some feedback, and then you start finding out, does the thing that you want to build, does it actually need to exist? So if you're still validating, you're not hiring anybody. If you are past that stage and you know that the thing, you've actually got some evidence for why this thing needs to exist, you have created a prototype, you've tested it with some people, then okay, this is when it's time to really considering what, like bringing other people in. So if you're building something incredibly complex, a technical co-founder could be useful, but in my experience, people who are just spending their time hunting around for a co-founder, they're actually not working on building the business. And that's really not a good idea. That will hold you back. So my advice is if you've done the validation, start basically bring on board whoever you can, whoever you can to help you create it. So if you can, if you've got some money, you can hire an agency. If you've got a little bit, like a tiny amount of money, you could hire somebody maybe from Upwork to help you build something potentially on Bubble, or maybe a fairly junior full stack developer. Maybe you could get some full stack developers who are still students to help you create a first version. I've seen companies do that. So basically, use whatever tools you have at your disposal to bring in some sort of technical help. And at the beginning, just be aware that your first technical help is probably not going to be your forever technical help. You know, everybody looks at kind of like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and sees this amazing bromance, which, slightly deteriorated later, but that's another story. But essentially, they see this collaboration from a young age to building this, multi-billion dollar company. Okay, that's wonderful, but that doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the time, the first technical collaborator or hire that you're going to have is not going to be with you forever. So get whoever you can to help you build it. Be careful of bringing in co-founders at an early stage before you've done anything with them, before you've really worked with them, before they've delivered anything. Because if you start signing equity agreements and you start giving away equity, even if it's vested, and then you figure out 3 months later that they're just not that dedicated and that they're a co-founder of 5 other startups, then you're just going to have to unwind that. So basically, to recap, if you're still validating, use AI no-code tools. If you are past that stage, bring in whoever you can with the resources that you've got. If they are not this, your forever person, that's fine. Just build something, get some validation, get some traction, maybe get some customers, even with a, simple product with not particularly scalable technology. After you've done that, you can then either raise money, get some money from an accelerator, get some money from a customer, and upgrade, maybe start working with a better agency or start hiring more expensive people. I hope that you have all found this useful. Tell me which questions resonate with you most, which answers you found most useful. So let me know by either commenting below or just sending me a message. You could get in touch with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, but if you want to have your questions answered, then write to info@techfornontechies.co. And if you found this episode useful, as always, I'm asking you, please like this below or leave this show a rating and a review. Thank you very much. I shall be back with you next week. Ciao.